What's up guys, J-Man here, and as promised, this is my list of movies that I personally love, but everyone else hates. And again, there's gonna be some movies on this list that is just gonna shock people, so just, keep calm and move the fuck on. So first on this list is actually Pocahontas. Now, I know this movie doesn't exactly have the best reputation nowadays, and I will admit that when I first saw it in theaters as a kid, I actually didn't really like it all that much, but then one day I decided to grow up and I, rewatched it after several years, and then I just realized it's actually kind of a beautiful story, it's got really good themes about nature and connectedness and stuff, and little fact about myself, I'm actually part Native American, so I can kind of relate to a little bit of it, and I think its story is actually more relevant nowadays because, with all the culture crap that's going on, so, I really like Pocahontas. What do you guys think? Next up is Armageddon. Now, I know that people even hated this movie back when it came out, and even today it's kind of considered a bit of a joke at this point. But I think it's a really cool summer blockbuster movie. It's also really emotional, I don't mind admitting. I actually cry every time I watch it. In fact, another little thing, I actually tend to watch it literally every Father's Day for obvious reasons. I don't know, I kind of like it. True, it all is pretty stupid, but you could argue that it's all part of the science fiction element of it. So, I think it's really fun, I think it's really emotional, and I like Armageddon. Next is the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze. Now, I grew up watching this. I just love it to death, honestly. In some ways, I actually kind of like it a little better than the first one, In my other video, I mentioned that the first one was just a little dark for me, and I enjoyed it, but it was just a little much for me to take. But with this one, I still have fun watching it every time I put it on. It's a lot more cartoony, obviously, but in a way, I kind of feel like they captured the spirit of the Turtles a lot better in a way. And honestly, I'm even gonna go on a limb here, it's kind of my favorite Turtles movie ever to be in existence, really. So I love TMNT 2, so shoot me if you want. Next is another movie that's kind of a bit of a joke nowadays, and that is Titanic. Now, I know that technically this movie won a bunch of awards when it came out, and it even became the highest grossing film of all time, but I think even back then when it came out, it was still kind of made fun of a little bit, and don't get me started on how it is today, so, but honestly, I think it actually is a good movie. I actually watch it every April 14th, the day of the sinking. I think it is a corny love story, don't get me wrong, but it's also a good character piece, and I really feel like they really did a good job with capturing the tragedy of the sinking that took place that night. I really like it, so I understand if you don't, but that's just me. Next is Ang Lee's Hulk. Now, let me get this out of the way. I will admit, it's not a movie for everyone. I do enjoy The Incredible Hulk, directed by Louis Leterrier, but for this one, I kind of like it for artistic reasons. I really love the style of direction. I really love Eric Bana as Bruce Banner. Bana. And I really dig everyone's performance in it. I just think it's a really good movie about, the beast that lives within all of us, which in a way is really the heart of the Hulk in a lot of ways, because we all become like some monster when we're all angry and stuff, so, of course, maybe not to that level, but you know what I mean. I really enjoy Ang Lee's Hulk. I understand why people don't like it, but it's one of my favorite comic book movies. Next is M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. Now, this is kind of the one movie where it arguably started with Signs, but this is kind of the one movie that just started M. Night Shyamalan's downfall. It was just eviscerated by critics and audiences. I really think the reason for that is because even Shyamalan himself will admit it was advertised all wrong. It was advertised as just another Shyamalan horror movie, and I think they were really also kind of banking on just Shyamalan being famous for horror movies in general, but this movie is not a horror movie. It's a suspenseful thriller at most. It's also kind of a bit of a love story, which I will admit is pretty cute. And I guess I also really like it because I relate to it in a lot of ways. You know, it deals with things that I find very personal, like, you know, dealing with regret and running from your past and losing loved ones and stuff. I mean, I understand it's not for everyone, but I personally really loved The Village. Next is, God help me, X3 The Last Stand. Now, let me just start by saying I'm actually a fan of the first 3 X-Men movies. In fact, I probably like the second one the best. But I actually think this movie is kind of underrated in some ways. I mean, in a way I can kind of understand why it kind of turns some people off, but I really enjoy it. I think it's like the first movie, like, where they actually start acting like a team in a way, you know? Like, and I've heard some people say that they really didn't like how certain characters were actually killed off and stuff, but I mean, I actually kind of like it. I mean, I love a movie that actually takes risks. I love it when it does stuff that is not considered safe, you know? And I really think that they really utilized Magneto and Wolverine and everyone in it, so I really like X-Men The Last Stand. Next is the first 3 Transformers movies. Now, notice I said the first 3. I actually think the last 2 are crap, so I actually really did enjoy the first 3 Bayformers, if you will. Even the second and third one, the 2 that are also kind of the most hated out of all of them. I think don't get me wrong, they're stupid, but they're enjoyably stupid. I mean, I think the CG in them is just astounding. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are plot holes in it everywhere and stuff, but I think they're pretty fun. You know, I think they're good summer blockbuster movies. They're good to look at, and just they're good for eating popcorn with, you know. So I don't know, I like Transformers. Next is Terminator Salvation. Now, I absolutely despise Terminator 3 and 5. I think it's Rise of the Machines and then Genesis. I absolutely abhor those movies. But this is actually the one sequel where it really felt like Terminator in a way, you know? Like, Rise of the Machines was just a parody of itself, and Genesis was just convoluted all over the place. The plot didn't make sense. It also kind of ruins the first movie in a lot of ways. I just did not like Genesis. But with this one, I really feel like, don't get me wrong, it's got plot holes everywhere, the writing is just atrocious in some places, but I really feel like it's the one Terminator sequel that genuinely had its heart in the right place. That's how I like to put it. It just really feels like Terminator, you know, the world just looks all grimy and old and just decrepit and stuff. It really feels like the type of world that would exist if Skynet took over, you know? So it's got its problems, but I genuinely enjoyed Terminator Salvation. Next is 2012. Now this is really just because I'm actually kind of a Roland Emmerich fan, when he's actually good. And with this one, even he kind of admitted that he didn't even believe in the whole myth of, you know, the world ending in 2012. You know, he actually made that perfectly clear. But I really enjoyed this one. It's a really good roller coaster ride, and I'm also a fan of the way Emmerich is able to structure his movies the way he does, from beginning to end, with each character and stuff. I'm really a fan of his writing style, and I'm a fan of his direction, and I really enjoy 2012. Next is the ATeam. I actually did an entire review on this on my other channel. Please go check that out. I'll leave the link in the description. And now, I think the reason that this didn't do so well is because a lot of people just thought it was kind of dumb. And in a way, I can understand that, but I think it kind of makes up for it by the fact that the characters themselves are so much fun to watch. Like, they're so brilliantly casted, and the action is so fun and stuff. I think it's even really funny too, so I really enjoy the ATeam. Next is the animated film Rise of the Guardians. Now, just like ATeam, I really think that this movie is really best because of its characters. They're all so individual, and they're all so unique and great to watch, and just the camaraderie between all of them is really good. And I really also kind of relate to Jack Frost's whole arc in the film, like really discovering himself and his purpose and stuff. I will admit that some of the writing is a bit flawed. I definitely would have done some things different with it myself, but I actually think it's really underrated, so I really enjoy Rise of the Guardians. Next is, don't shoot me, the remake of Robocop. Now, before I talk about that, let me just get one confession out of the way. I wasn't exactly a fan of the original Robocop. Not that I hated it, it's just that, for one thing, I'm just not a fan of director Paul Verhoeven, just not really fond of his style. For another thing, I'm not really a fan of the satire genre. For another thing, the violence and gore in it was just way too gross and even disturbing for me. So, I mean, I get why people love it, it's just not really my thing. But with this remake, don't get me wrong, it's definitely not perfect. There are definitely some moments where it drags and it just gets really boring and stuff, but there are actually some things that I like a lot better than the original. You know, I really actually dig Alex Murphy's character. I loved the whole plot with it, and don't get me wrong, the writing is definitely far from perfect, but I genuinely enjoy the remake of Robocop, even if I have to fast forward through some places. Next is actually Avengers Age of Ultron. I genuinely think this movie is kind of underrated. In some ways, I think it's even better than the first one. Not every way, obviously, but some ways. The one thing that really makes me enjoy it the most is just, of course, the characters and the chemistry and camaraderie between all the characters. Like, just that one scene where they all try to lift Thor's hammer is just really makes up for any flaw the movie has for me. I just really dig how they're actually friends at this point. They're actually partners and stuff. I think the banter between all of them is really good. And of course, you know, the action and plot I really enjoyed too. Now, there are a couple things I could have done without. I can't think of it at the top of my head at the moment, but I really enjoy Age of Ultron. I really think it's underrated. What do you guys think? And the last on this list that I'm going to name is Sorcerer's Apprentice. I mean, yeah, it's dumb, and Nicolas Cage looks like he's bored for the whole movie, but I think it's kind of fun. You know, I'm really interested in those type of movies that really deals with the realm of imagination more than anything. Like, what would you do if you had the powers of a sorcerer? You know, you could do anything. And I think the love story in it is kind of cute, and I really kind of relate to Jay Baruchel's character, just thinking that he's not worthy of this stuff, and eventually, you know, coming to accept it and stuff. So, I mean, I really enjoy Sorcerer's Apprentice. I mean, come at me if you will. So that was Volume 1 of movies that I love but everyone else hates. And believe me, if you thought this list was something, why don't you check out my next one where I talk about my guilty pleasures. That's gonna be fun. Now tell me, which movies do you agree with, and what are some of your favorites that people generally hate? Whatever it is, don't be shy, leave a reply. Also, I wanted to tell my subscribers that I'm thinking of making this my regular thing. Maybe doing a regular video and then a personal video. But I need more topics to talk about, so please give me some suggestions. Also, I have a Patreon account where you can support me once a month. I can take your suggestions for videos, I can give your name a personal shout out, anything. So please support me, follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and of course, if you like this, like, comment, and subscribe to the J-Man. Peace out.